The mayor is a fascinating individual in Autodale. At first glance, he may simply come off as a fascistic dictator enforcing authoritarian control over the people. However, the deeper you delve into his character, the more complicated he becomes. Rather than simply being a man sitting atop a throne, he's a man lost in chaos of his own immortal machine of Autodale. An aspect of his character alongside other aspects that I'd like to explore in more detail, as I find his character exceptionally interesting, as I believe it adds a lot more nuance to the theme of fascism in the series. Before we can properly analyze his character, however, there are two things that need to be established. The mayor is a fascist, and Autodale the series is a representation of the themes of fascism. That is the interpretation I'll be using for my analysis. If you'd like to know my reasoning, please go watch my first video on Autodale where I explain this in much greater detail. And two, as many of you have suggested, I'll be using dead sounds behind the scenes videos on Autodale to get a better look at how the creator himself sees the mayor. And while I am a firm believer of separating the art from the artist, Dead Sound's internal insight as to what he sees the mayor as certainly adds more depth to his character without tainting the mayor's ability to stand on his own within the series itself. With all that being said, let's jump back into the world of Autodale and explore the man behind the immortal machine. If there's one definitive thing about the mayor's character, is that he truly does care about Autodale and its citizens. If he didn't, then he wouldn't have gone to such great lengths to ensure the survival of what remained of humanity after the Withering, the name of the cataclysm caused by the virus that wiped out almost the entire world. However, the question we should be asking is not whether or not the mayor cares about the people, but rather does he care about them out of noble or malicious intent. While in the beginning I do believe he was truly authentic in his noble intentions, as the mayor himself states that even with all of his sins against the people, they were all necessary for the benefit of Autodale.
It was all necessary.
Even going so far as to seeing his actions as a kindness rather than torture.
Utter kindness.
As well as before isolating himself, he was shown to be a character that cared for the people who were suffering around him, like the little girl he held when he first met the matriarch, an ancient goddess who has the power to cure the virus afflicting the world while simultaneously being vulnerable to it as well. It's why I believe, compared to the previous attempts at Autodale by other people, the mayor's version worked because he and the matriarch had a mutual understanding of preserving life because the mayor truly cared. Meanwhile, the other towns most likely saw their relationships with their own matriarchs as a form of enslavement, evident by their matriarch's final moments. He isn't someone that takes pleasure in the suffering of others because he doesn't want others to feel or even see the things he experienced during the beginning of the Withering with how harrowing they were. And while he does believe his actions to be necessary in the end still, he doesn't ignore the fact that what he's doing is wrong on a moral basis.
That poor, lonesome thing seemed awfully burdened by his creation.
However, with what the mayor himself presents to the audience, there are more layers than what he himself believes. Which I believe comes down to one thing that, to be honest, came as a shock to me when I first heard it. The reason coming from Dead Sound's creative process video on the mayor himself, where he says this about what the mayor thinks about the freaks, the monsters of Autodale, as being born from the remnants of the old world. The mayor despised them, but for a very specific reason.
Seeing the freaks living outside of Autodale, thriving in the withering world that should be poisonous, is exactly what started the mayor's doubts. This totally undercut his achievement. He didn't save the last of life. Life continued without him regardless and has adapted. This moment broke him. It's the moment he went from 100% certain of his actions, a stoic and powerful messiah, savior of all, to a confused, second-guessing, tormented soul riddled with guilt. The mayor hates these things. He doesn't want them in his town. He doesn't want to know that they even exist. He has demonized them in Autodale's culture, all because they symbolize his regrets. They are proof that his actions, his sins, were in fact not necessary.
This commentary completely recontextualizes the mayor's actions during the time of the Freaks. They are the reason that the mayor, once so stoic and mighty, is reduced to someone second-guessing all of his actions that he once believed were completely just, for the noble reason of saving life. A realization that, as Dead Sound said, breaks him, exposing not just the flaws of his actions, but his flaw as a character as well. For someone who presents himself as someone who cares about the sanctity of life, the mayor's reaction to the Freaks tells a different story. Rather than attempting to find a new path forward for what life resides in Autodale, he demonizes the Freaks as something to be feared. As despite what they could positively represent for life as a whole, the mayor is only concerned about what they represent about him. Intentionally or not, the Freaks actively destroy everything he has built for the last thousands of years because their mere existence exposes the faults and flaws of the mayor's once necessary sins. Life continued without him, and that was a realization that he couldn't accept because of his pride in Autodale for preserving life as long as it has. The mayor does not mean for his pride to consume his better judgment, but if he were to tear down Autodale once and for all, he would be admitting that everything he had done was for nothing. A thought that actively scares him into a state of refusal of accountability for his actions as a fascistic dictator, driving him to turn a symbol of hope for life to begin again into a symbol of fear that should be dreaded at the thought of. All in an attempt to close himself off from his own internal conflict that haunts his every waking moment, which eventually reached a boiling point with the arrival of Autodale's exceptional girl, a citizen who saw through the veil of deception. Despite what the Freaks represent about him, the mayor still acknowledges that what he's doing is wrong, which is why he sought a fresh perspective from the exceptional girl to possibly find an alternative path.
After enough isolation and time come many doubts. I have brought you here for a fresh perspective.
However, with the mayor's bias of the Freaks in mind, his intentions behind his request become unclear as to how genuine he actually is for a fresh perspective, something that Dead Sound intentionally kept ambiguous.
In the film, it's a bit unclear whether or not the mayor is deliberately manipulating and indoctrinating her into conforming, or if he genuinely does want a second opinion as to whether or not his crimes were necessary, if Autodale should change. I kept it that way on purpose, and honestly, I don't think I even know. The mayor is split himself. Part of him thinks that Autodale is a utopia, his magnificent immortal machine, and half of him thinks the city is an abomination and wants to burn it all down. If the exceptional woman rejected Autodale in this moment here, and told the mayor that it should stop, I really have no idea what the mayor would say, and it's one of the things I really like about him.
A decision that I believe, while it does muddy the waters on what the mayor definitely wants for Autodale, does allow the mayor's actions to be more complex as a character, rather than that of a character who blatantly doesn't believe themselves to be wrong. The mayor, even with what the Freaks represent, does still care for what's best for Autodale, regardless of the Freaks' existence making the city's existence pointless. He does still strive to make the town better, whatever path that may be, and it's why I believe the exceptional girl's agreement of the concept of Autodale is what pushed the mayor to becoming the full-fledged dictator he is after their first meeting. As her cooperation and eventually as Hive to help run the town is confirmation to the mayor from a person who has seen the horrific truth and still accepted it, that Autodale still indeed serves a purpose. To that end, I don't believe it's fair to say that the mayor was intentionally trying to indoctrinate the exceptional girl into the system, because if he was truly, then he wouldn't be framing his actions as something to be forgiven for how sinful they are. He would most likely be pushing the false narrative forward that his actions are all part of a larger, grander, positive plan for the future and betterment of the citizens of Autodale. Rather instead, while he still frames his actions as necessary, he doesn't frame them with rose-tinted glasses either, actively choosing to give the full picture of what he's done so as to get a truly fresh perspective on if his actions are truly what he believes them to be. However, on that same note, I believe it's also unfair to say that the mayor doesn't have a preferred answer in mind. The freaks actively torment the mayor with uncertainty about his actions. It pains him with doubt that after everything he's done, it could have all been for nothing. So with the arrival of the exceptional girl, while on one hand he does see it as a means to improve Autodale with her fresh perspective, on the other hand, he does see it as a means to confirm his own conviction to Autodale's necessary existence, ultimately leading the mayor into falling into what I coin in his case to be the Prideful paradox. The mayor, despite the ocean of blood on his hands, is and will always be a noble man. He wants life to continue and is willing to do anything he can because he cares about life so much in order to dedicate however long he has lived to achieve that goal. However, his pride continues to hold him back from accepting the reality of Autodale's purpose, for in the end he fears everything he has done was for nothing, regardless of the noble intentions behind his character, leaving nothing but a grotesque shell of a savior trapped in an endless loop of tragic irony. For how is the mayor to find a solution to his problem when he himself won't admit what the problem truly is in the first place? In my mind, the mayor is quite honestly the best character in Autodale. Despite his simplistic character on the surface as a fascist dictator, his lifelong noble intentions of preserving life while simultaneously plagued with the uncertainty of what he admits are the sins he committed to preserve life, makes him a complex yet interesting character to watch as he struggles to find reason in the chaos caused by the immortal machine that has burdened him for so long. A conflict that I hope one day, if Dead Sound were to ever make another Autodale film, does explore with the mayor in more depth, as I'd love to especially see how he first reacted to finding out about the freaks, and how he interpreted them initially to his goal of preserving life. Of course, these are all just my thoughts. Let me know yours down in the comments below, and I'll see y'all in the next video.